Okay, picture this. September 15th, 2025. We are just 2 days, literally 2 days, away from a potential congressional ban hitting TikTok. 170 million American users possibly cut off.
The tension was palpable, an entire ecosystem facing shutdown.
Exactly. But then, seemingly out of nowhere, news breaks from Madrid. A framework consensus. Now, disaster averted, yes, but what really emerged was something, well, fundamentally different. A blueprint, really, for a fragmented digital world.
It's much bigger than just one app, isn't it? It signals a potential shift in how the entire global internet operates.
Absolutely. Welcome to Nation Scope Podcast. I'm Jordan.
And I'm Jamie.
And here we dive into the headlines, the breaking stories, and the critical events shaping America and, indeed, the world. From politics to tech, we analyze the news that really matters.
And today, we're digging into a fascinating report called TikTok Truce, a blueprint for digital fragmentation.
Our goal here is to unpack how this precarious deal actually came together, what it means for an app that, let's face it, so many of you use every day, and, critically, the long-term ripple effects for the internet.
We want you to understand this complex mix: technology, geopolitics, national security. It's all intertwined.
And stick with us, because where this leads, well, it goes deeper than you might think. So, Jamie, this Madrid agreement, it didn't just materialize, right? It felt like the culmination of years of back and forth.
Oh, absolutely. Years of escalating tension. You really have to trace it back to see how this evolved from, somewhat niche security worry into a major flashpoint in the whole U.S.-China relationship.
Right. It became a centerpiece, really.
A centerpiece of strategic competition. It shows the tenacity on both sides, frankly.
Okay, so let's go back. 2020, the Trump administration's first term. That's when we first heard serious talk of a ban, wasn't it? The fears about ByteDance, user data, the CCP.
That was the opening salvo. The concerns were clear: potential data access for Beijing, potential manipulation of the algorithm for propaganda.
And those executive orders came fast and furious, demanding divestiture in, 45 days?
Incredibly aggressive timelines. You remember the whole Microsoft saga, Satya Nadella calling it the strangest deal? It just highlighted the chaos of that initial push.
And that early TikTok global idea with Oracle and Walmart, it feels like a precursor looking back.
It was in many ways a blueprint. Oracle is the trusted tech provider, Walmart coming in. But it stalled.
Why did it stall back then?
Primarily legal challenges. TikTok successfully argued in court that the executive orders were an overreach of presidential power. It showed the U.S. side needed a much stronger legal footing.
Which kind of brings us to the Biden administration, then Congress. Biden reversed those orders, but the issue didn't vanish.
Not at all. The underlying concerns remained. And then, crucially, Congress stepped in with bipartisan support in 2024.
That was PFACA, right? The Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary-Controlled Applications Act.
Exactly. Passed in April 2024. And PFACA was different. It wasn't just an executive order. It was federal law.
And it set a hard deadline.
A hard deadline. Divest U.S. operations by January 19, 2025, or face a comprehensive ban. Much harder to challenge legally.
So, ByteDance and creators sued again, but this time.
This time the Supreme Court weighed in. January 17, 2025, just days before the deadline. A unanimous ruling upholding PFACA.
Wow. Unanimous.
That was a decisive blow. It basically exhausted their legal avenues in the U.S.
And then for a brief, very weird moment on January 18th, the app actually went dark for U.S. users.
It did. It seemed like the ban was really happening. But then, the twist.
President Trump, back for a second term, steps in on January 20th.
Right. Immediately pauses the ban for 75 days. Then more extensions, pushing the final deadline all the way to September 17th.
So what happened there? Why the sudden reversal from ban to pause?
Well, the report suggests a significant shift in thinking. Trump began to see TikTok not just as a threat, but as a, quote, immense political utility.
After the 2024 campaign.
Exactly. He apparently credited it with helping reach younger voters. So the objective shifted from banning it to, saving it, but on terms acceptable to the administration.
That political recalibration is fascinating. It completely changed the endgame and, as you said, set the stage for the Madrid negotiations.
It really did. It moved from confrontation towards finding some kind of structured solution.
Okay, so we've got the history. Now let's dive into the deal itself. The Madrid deal. The report calls it a fragile consensus. What does that mean? What is this deal?
Well, fragile is the key word. Think of it less as a solid agreement and more like a carefully balanced structure built over a fault line. It's designed to satisfy conflicting demands for now.
But inherently unstable.
Exactly. It's engineered fragility, you could say. It manages the conflict rather than resolving it.
Okay, so the core piece. TikTok's U.S. operations transferred to U.S.-controlled ownership. But the details seem murky. Treasury Secretary Bessent just called it a private commercial deal.
Public details are scarce, yes. But the report pieces together the likely structure. It looks like a modified version of that old TikTok global idea. Oracle Central, of course.
And ByteDance. Pafaka said their ownership had to be below 20%.
Right. So the blueprint suggests ByteDance holds on to a minority stake, just under that 20% threshold. Then you have existing U.S. investors, General Atlantic, Susquehanna, KKR. They roll their stakes over, maybe taking around 30%.
Okay, so that leaves 50%.
For a new U.S. consortium to acquire, that gives them the controlling majority stake, satisfying the U.S.-controlled part of Pafaka, at least on paper.
Got it. But the elephant in the room was always the algorithm, right? The secret sauce. How did they solve that? The U.S. wanted it transferred. China blocked that with export controls.
That was the trickiest part. The solution wasn't a sale. It was a licensing model.
A license. So ByteDance still owns it.
Yes. Chinese officials confirmed it a license for use of the algorithm and other IP. This is a huge point. It's a major concession by the U.S., allowing Beijing to claim victory on techno-sovereignty. ByteDance keeps legal ownership of its crown jewel.
But the U.S. entity gets to use it.
It gets to use it, yes. But, and this is critical, Ban, China's approval is still likely needed for the license itself and potentially for significant updates. That keeps Beijing in the loop, maintains leverage. It's a key point of that fragility we talked about.
Okay, and the other big U.S. concern, data security. Where does that land?
That points squarely at Oracle and Project Texas. That project's been running since 2022, remember? Hosting U.S. user data, reviewing code.
Right, setting up firewalls.
Exactly. The Madrid framework essentially codifies and probably expands Project Texas. Oracle becomes the official national security guarantor. They're the trusted third party meant to ensure data stays secure and the platform isn't misused.
So you have U.S. control on paper, a licensed algorithm, and Oracle policing the data. But you mentioned fragility. Where does that really show up?
Look at how both sides describe the deal afterwards. U.S. officials, definitive framework, U.S.-controlled ownership, completely respects U.S. national security. Very final, very secure sounding.
Okay, and China?
China's narrative. Basic framework consensus, resolved through cooperation, respecting market rules, and authorization of use for the IP. And crucially, they linked it to broader economic cooperation, warning against suppression.
Wow, that's not the same story at all.
Not at all. That fundamental dissonance, two different interpretations of the same agreement, that's where future disputes are almost guaranteed to arise. It builds in ambiguity.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's dig into the why then. What drove Washington and Beijing to accept this specific kind of awkward structure?
Well, starting with the American position, it's really that collision we talked about. The long-standing national security doctrine meeting head-on with, well, immediate political goals.
The security rationale was always data privacy and malign influence, right? That drove Pafaka, got the Supreme Court's backing.
Absolutely. Those were the core stated concerns. The risks of CCP data access, the potential for propaganda via the algorithm, those remain non-negotiable public justifications for action.
But then layer on top President Trump's approach. He called it transactional diplomacy?
Yes. His personal pivot, seeing TikTok as that vital political asset after 2024, wanting to be seen as saving it for young voters, that introduced a powerful political motive alongside the security one.
And his team, Treasury Secretary Bessent, VP J.D. Vance, they were heavily involved.
Deeply involved, which, according to the report, led to this transactional horse trading. TikTok got tangled up with other U.S.-China issues, like trade.
Which drew criticism, right? Treating national security like a bargaining chip.
Exactly. It raised concerns about blurring the lines between core security interests and achieving a politically expedient outcome.
Okay, now flip to Beijing. What was their calculus?
For China, this was huge. It was about defending a national tech champion, pushing back against what they saw as illegitimate and predatory U.S. actions, bullying, as they put it. And it was about asserting their own digital sovereignty.
And their key move was making the algorithm that red line.
That was strategically brilliant. Updating their export control list in 2020 to cover recommendation algorithms gave them a legal basis within Chinese law to block any forced transfer of the core IP.
It gave them a veto.
A veto, precisely. It took a simple forced sale off the table for the U.S.
And then they linked TikTok to trade.
Yes, skillfully playing the TikTok trade linkage. Negotiators essentially said, you want cooperation on TikTok? Now let's talk about tariffs, sanctions, broader economic accommodation.
Wow. So they didn't just defend, they went on the offensive diplomatically.
Absolutely. They leveraged the crisis over the app to force discussions on wider economic concessions from the Trump administration. It was a sophisticated play.
Okay. So beyond the governments, what about the companies caught in the middle? ByteDance, Oracle, Walmart.
This whole episode really highlights what the report calls a new kind of corporate statecraft. Companies making deals driven less by pure market logic and more by how they can solve geopolitical problems.
ByteDance must have been walking a tightrope.
An incredibly fine line. Publicly, very cautious, confirming talks, but always stressing the need for Beijing's approval.
But behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes, their engineers were working flat out through 2025, duplicating the code base, creating a US-specific version of the algorithm, basically doing the technical prep work needed for separation, anticipating this kind of outcome.
And Oracle. This seems like a massive win for them.
Monumental. From maybe buying it in 2020 to getting Project Texas in 2022, now Madrid cements them as the national security guarantor.
Huge for their cloud business, their reputation.
Absolutely. It positions them as the company that can solve these complex data sovereignty issues for governments. And, Larry Ellison's alignment with Trump probably didn't hurt in building that trust.
Makes sense. And Walmart. Their interest seems more straightforwardly commercial.
Yes, e-commerce integration. They see TikTok's potential as a massive social commerce platform, a way to tap into that huge user base for direct sales, potentially challenging Amazon.
And the U.S. investors General Atlantic, Susquehanna, KKR.
They were crucial for the structure. Rolling over their existing stakes into the new U.S. entity helps meet that PFACA requirement for majority U.S. ownership without needing a huge, complex cash buyout of ByteDance.
So it's not your typical merger or acquisition?
Not at all. It's geopolitically driven M&A. Corporate strategy and foreign policy are blurring. Companies like Oracle that offer geopolitical solutions gain a real advantage.
Okay, let's zoom out. This deal, it's clearly more than just about TikTok. What are the broader, long-term geopolitical shockwaves?
The biggest one, arguably, is how this operationalizes and legitimizes the idea of the Splinternet, that concept of the global internet fracturing along national or regional lines.
So this deal makes it more real, more likely.
It provides a concrete model, especially the algorithm licensing part. It reinforces the notion that core digital tech is a strategic national asset, like energy or defense infrastructure, subject to state control.
And that sets a precedent.
A powerful one. Other countries you mentioned, the EU, India, others can now point to this and say, we want similar arrangements. We want control over data and algorithms operating within our borders. It accelerates that fragmentation.
So for U.S.-China relations, is it a step towards peace in the tech war?
It's a tactical de-escalation. It removes a major irritant, averts a messy ban, maybe open space for dialogue like that planned Trump-Xi call.
What?
But it's a temporary truce, not a strategic resolution. It doesn't touch the fundamental drivers, the competition over chips, AI, quantum computing, IP theft concerns. That underlying tech rivalry is deep and structural. It's not going away.
So the Splinternet, how does this U.S. approach compare to, say, China's Great Firewall?
It's different in method, but similar in outcome. China uses direct censorship and blocking. The U.S. model emerging here is more about corporate and technical separation. Separate data, separate operations, licensed IP, trusted third-party oversight. It's sort of democratic variant of digital nationalism.
But the end result is still national digital borders.
Yes. When the world's two biggest digital economies both embrace digital nationalism, even in different ways, it sets a powerful global norm. Others will follow. We're moving away from a truly global digital commons.
And for you, the listener, what does that mean?
It means challenges for global companies, higher costs, complex compliance. But for users, it potentially means a less open, less interconnected internet. Your online experience could become much more defined by your nationality.
Okay, so this deep dive really paints a picture of a politically engineered truce solidifying digital borders, but you stress the fragility. What are the biggest risks still looming over this deal? Could it still fall apart?
Absolutely. Despite the Madrid announcement, the report highlights several critical hurdles. First, presidential approval. That final sign-off from Trump and Xi isn't just a rubber stamp. Given the unpredictable nature of U.S.-China relations, anything could happen.
And China still holds cards.
Definitely. That's the second risk. Chinese regulatory review. Remember, the algorithm license needs approval under China's tech export laws. Beijing could delay, impose conditions, or even veto it.
What about back in the U.S.?
U.S. congressional scrutiny. You can bet national security hawks in Congress will pick this deal apart, questioning if it really severs ByteDance's control sufficiently under Bavaka. Bipartisan opposition could still emerge and try to block it.
And just making it work day to day.
That's the fourth risk. Implementation disputes.
Wow.
All that ambiguity we talked about in the consensus, that's fertile ground for arguments later over the license terms, Oracle's exact powers, voting rights within the new U.S. company.
So the takeaway isn't certainty, it's ongoing vigilance.
Continued uncertainty is probably the best way to put it. This deal requires constant political and regulatory management. It's not done.
So given this new reality, what are the strategic takeaways for policymakers, for businesses, for investors listening?
Well, this new reality, this intertwining of tech and geopolitics, demands a strategic rethink. For you, the listener, it means understanding just how deeply linked these forces now are.
For policymakers.
They need coherent digital sovereignty strategies. They need to anticipate that other countries will demand similar arrangements. Reciprocity is coming.
And tech executives.
They have to ditch the old one-size-fits-all global approach. Geopolitical risk isn't just something for the policy team anymore. It has to be core to business strategy, product design, everything.
And investors.
Reevaluate risk. Political risk is now tech risk. But also, look for opportunities. Identify those geopolitical solution providers, companies like Oracle in this case, that thrive by navigating this complexity.
This TikTok truce, it really is a microcosm of these huge shifts. National security, global economics, the apps on your phone, they're all connected now in ways we're just beginning to fully grasp.
Indeed. It's not just about TikTok. It's a powerful signpost for how digital space is increasingly shaped by geopolitical realism, challenging that original dream of a borderless global internet. What's the biggest thing that stands out to you from all this, and where might we see this playbook used next?
That's the question, isn't it? Think about your favorite global app right now. Could it be next? Could it face this kind of geopolitical restructuring? The precedent has, without a doubt, been set. You've been listening to Nation Scope Podcast, where Jordan and Jamie analyze the stories shaping America and the world. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.